Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot suggests that everything that Donald Trump is saying about the city of Chicago is manufactured. It's not a real problem. There's not violence. There's not crime. There's not a problem in Chicago. And if there is, it's not their fault. It's the fault, you see, of red states. Here's Lori Lightfoot.
The crime rate has gone down. You heard the numbers of decreases in homicides and shootings and other violent crimes that have gone down and have been going down for the last 4 years. We can't ignore that because the president is making up his own fact. And we also know there are red cities in red states that have higher per capita rates of gun violence and other violent crime that we're not hearing coming out of the president's mouth as the places where he really wants to go. So I just will not play this game. This is about violent crime. What do communities need? We need to stop the flow of illegal guns. Mayor Johnson was 100% right about that. You don't gut the ATF, which is, by the way, really small to begin with. You should increase and expand the numbers.
False, false, false. One, even if the crime rate's going down over the last 4 years, does that mean you've achieved some level of tolerance when it comes to crime? And one of the worst cities in the United States of America, Chicago, which I believe comes in at about number 8 in violent crime per capita. Have you achieved an acceptable level of violence for Chicagoans? 2, I defy you, former Mayor Lori Lightfoot, to name the red cities and red states that have worse per capita violent crime rates than the city of Chicago. Of course, she would not be able to. She's not playing a game, but she's actually, yes, indeed playing a game of falsehoods. Almost every, I believe the number is only 5 out of the top 50 cities in America for violent crime per capita would be characterized as red cities. And then she suggests that almost all the problems being imported into Chicago when it comes to guns are the fault of the policies of red states. That's something we're also hearing from the current mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson.
We need the federal government to stop the endless flow of guns into our state and into our city. Chicago police officers have taken more than 24,000 guns, illegal guns, off the streets of Chicago since I've taken office. We will never be able to end gun violence in Chicago as long as the president continues to allow tens of thousands of guns to be trafficked into our state and our city. The vast majority of guns do not come from Chicago. They are not made in Cook County. They are not bought in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states. They are coming from Indiana. They are coming from Mississippi. They are coming from Louisiana. And that is the harsh reality, whether Republicans like it or not.
That is not the harsh reality. That is false. You know how you know Brandon Johnson is lying? His lips are moving. The ATF has published their data from 2023. Here is the data from the ATF. Roughly 23,000 firearms were recovered in the state of Illinois in 2023. Of those, 9,147 were from Illinois. And in a distant second, roughly 800 were from Indiana. Beyond Indiana, there were not even 1,000 guns recovered or traced with origins in another single state. False. Wrong. Lie. Mayor Brandon Johnson. That sets aside the fact that a gun is a tool. Blaming a gun for violence is blaming a fork for someone being fat. A gun is a tool. A human being has to be on the other end of that gun. A human being has to be pulling the trigger. And if you want the truth about the problem of crime in Chicago, or in New York, or in New Orleans, or in Dallas, or Houston, or Birmingham, Alabama, it is the same group of people committing the same crimes on the same victims over and over. Here are stats out of New York City. The 3-year recidivism rate. Nearly 40% of people released from Illinois prison. This is not from New York City. This is actually from the state of Illinois. Nearly 40% of people released from Illinois prison populations returned within the next 3 years. World Population Review cites a 2024 3-year reincarceration rate of 36.7% for Illinois, while 2019 saw 43%, according to the Illinois State Commission on Criminal Justice and Sentencing Reform. In 2011, the Pew Research Center found that At 52%, Illinois had one of the highest recidivism rates in the country. Whether or not it is New York or Illinois, the same people commit the same crimes over and over. When we talk broadly about crime in Chicago, we get the impression that it's every citizen or a large percentage of the citizenry committing crimes, committing murder, committing theft. It's not. It's the same group of people in the same neighborhoods over and over committing the same crimes. You have a relatively small portion of people in America responsible for making it unlivable to be in America. And if you want to be specific, what we're talking about when it comes to the overwhelming majority of crime is that most of the crime in Chicago occurs on the south side and the west side of Chicago. Most of the crime in New York occurs in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. Most of the crime in Dallas occurs in South Dallas. These are poor, black neighborhoods where the criminals are primarily black perpetrators. But the real catch is that the victims, almost inevitably, are black Americans. For Donald Trump to offer assistance to Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, and for that to be denied and turned down by the likes of Brandon Johnson is to essentially say, for decades, we've had a problem of crime, of victimization in black neighborhoods in cities across America, committed by black perpetrators. Black on black crime, black on black murder. It is an chronic, decades-long, half a century-long problem in the United States. And if someone is offering some solution, and maybe the solution isn't perfect in your mind, maybe that solution shouldn't require the National Guard, but that solution has remained elusive for every local politician for a half a century. Maybe at some point your citizenry requires that leadership takes action. Leadership takes decision-making. Leadership requires a solution. And for Brandon Johnson or J.B. Pritzker or Lori Lightfoot or Zohran Mamdani should become the mayor of New York City, to deny their people a solution, a people that have been victimized chronically for half a century, is to consign those people not just to a lifetime of victimhood, but generations of victimhood. If you're born on the south side of Chicago, you're black and you're poor, you are highly likely to be the victim of a violent crime. And for Brandon Johnson to deny you a potential solution is for him to consign not just you, but your family and your children and your neighborhood to the same type of epidemic that your parents suffered, that was suffered by your grandparents. And for them to shift the problem to the inanimate object of the gun, for them to shift the problem to faraway states and faraway politicians, is not just a lie, it's an insulting lie. And it's not just an insulting lie, it's a harmful lie. It literally kills. The lies of Lori Lightfoot and the lies of Brandon Johnson literally kill black victims on the south side of Chicago. If the problem is too much for you, then leadership is too much for you. You don't belong with power in Chicago. You don't belong with power in New Orleans. You don't belong in power in New York. Get out of the way and let a real leader solve the problems of Chicagoans.